Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Marr and I am an English as Additional Language Lead for Anglophone School District West. Welcome to Repurposing Resources for MLLs. This PL is centered around repurposing resources for multilingual language learners, or MLLs. It is primarily focused around literacy ideas and activities to support speaking, listening, reading, and writing. However, many of the suggestions can also be implemented in content areas as well. Thank you for joining today. Throughout this presentation, we will look at various resources that are already in your schools. I think we sometimes think that we need to purchase brand new resources to support our MLLs and their language journey, but when I went searching throughout several schools this year, I was able to locate many items that can be used. The resources we will look at specifically are level text, wordless picture books, games and activities from the resource room and/or primary classrooms, as well as taking a close look at word walls and how they can be tweaked. Our first topic is repurposing leveled texts, especially those texts that are at the A through F levels. Leveled text can be used for a variety of purposes with MLLs. Depending on your school, these texts may now be mixed up in classroom libraries, or they may still be stored by levels in a book room. Leveled texts are very useful for building vocabulary and introducing and reinforcing simple sentence structures. We will look at some examples of how they can be used in the coming slides. Many leveled texts, especially those at levels A through D, contain very repetitive sentence patterns. These type of texts are important for MLLs as language learners need repetition in order to obtain and retain new vocabulary and sentence structures. In the leveled text Helping Dad, it follows a very repetitive sentence structure. I help Dad blank. As you can see, each page describes a chore to fit the structure. For example, I help Dad dust, I help Dad sweep, etc. There is strong text to picture matching on these pages, so this aids with vocabulary development and helps reinforce the language. An extension activity would be to then have the students write their own mini book of chores that they help with. They could even change the sentence to include other people that they help chores with. For example, I help Mom, or I help my brother, or I help my friend, or I help my teacher. So there are very many extension activities that could be used with this text. Another benefit of leveled texts is that they can be used to create text sets about specific high-yield themed vocabulary, such as animals, colors, family, weather, etc. The photograph on the left shows a text set I created about animals and pets. Students do not need to read the text as it is written. Instead, they can talk about the animals they know and can label the pictures on their own or with your help. As you can see in the second photograph, I've labeled the pictures in the text as the purpose in this case of using the text was to introduce various animals. So we have a cat and a pony or a horse, depending on the word you used. This is also a good opportunity to have students, to link students' knowledge of beginning and ending sounds when labeling the pictures. So they could help you to write those words on there as well, based on the knowledge that they have about beginning and ending sounds as they're learning the language. Providing sentence stems for MLLs is a high-yield strategy that greatly assists with language development. Sentence stems are the beginning words of a sentence. Teaching and using sentence stems with MLLs help the students to understand English sentence structure and gives them a familiar structure, so they do not need to search for the words to begin a sentence. Instead, they can focus on repetition and finishing the sentence with vocabulary they have learned. Sentence stems are open-ended. There are many basic sentence stems that can be used with leveled text, such as I like blank, I can blank. In this example on this slide, I have used the pictures from a leveled text and created a basic sentence stem to align with the pictures. The book was titled When I Play, but it had many clear pictures that described action words. As you can see, I wrote over the original text to create a simple sentence structure for the early language stages. The simple text is using the sentence stem I can, modeled off the pictures. I can run, I can swim, I can bike, I can skip, I can kick, I can sleep. An extension activity for this sentence stem and vocabulary words is for students to write their own text about activities they can do. They can write and illustrate it, and then they will have a text to practice reading, which contains a simple sentence structure and vocabulary they are familiar with. A second type of resource that can be repurposed or used in a different way are wordless picture books. The beautiful thing about using wordless picture books is that there are many implications for language learners of all levels to use this resource. Many primary classrooms have wordless picture books already, but you can also find them in your school library and even on the Sora app. The books on the left were purchased recently, but I found the books on the right in the book room at a school. With a little bit of looking, you should be able to find some wordless picture books somewhere in your school. In the following slides, you will learn many different ways to use this type of book to help MLLs. Wordless picture books can be used with all students in your class, not just MLLs. Using them whole class provides many opportunities for differentiation. As the slide says, with beginner language learners, students can label actions and objects in the pictures. For emerging language students, they can be provided with sentence stems to tell the stories happening in the pictures. Finally, for advanced learners, students can take a critical stance about the plot of the story or narrate the story from a different perspective. So there are many different ways to use these books with a small group or a whole class, as we'll discuss further. The great thing about wordless picture books is that students naturally engage in language acquisition by describing what they see on the pages. The pictures on this page are taken from the wordless book, Mirror, by Jeannie Baker. It tells simultaneous stories about two boys from separate parts of the world and is meant to be read side by side as the pages flip outward. It contains images of life in different parts of the world at the same time of day and how the boys' lives are similar and different. Students can describe what they see in the pictures to build vocabulary. Depending on where the students are from, they may be able to share parts of their culture and religion with other students in your class. It would be a valuable learning experience for everyone. Wordless picture books also provide the opportunity to provide a link to speaking and reading by using sentence stems. In the wordless picture book, The Haircut, students can label what they see in the pictures. They can use the stem I see to describe what they notice and what is happening in the pictures. After this activity, they could create a few sentences about the pictures and text and read it together with the teacher. The teacher could then remove some words from the created text to create a sentence frame activity. Students could then read and fill in the missing words using the bank of vocabulary words they had already created with the teacher. And this is a book that was found in a book room. It was a leveled text, so there probably are copies of The Haircut somewhere in your school. The wordless picture book Chalk by Bill Thompson is another great resource. Another way that it can be used is to introduce and reinforce sequencing language. The sentence stems first, next, and then could be used to frame the plot of the story. For example, in these pictures, your students might say, first, 3 children are walking on the road. They see a dinosaur. After, the children see many butterflies. They can also incorporate new vocabulary that has been shared into their sentences. The great thing about wordless picture books is that they can be used with all students in your class. The expectations might change based on the students' language levels. As mentioned earlier, some groups of students might be working on describing objects in the pictures, sequencing the plot of the story, while others might be writing an alternative ending or a spin-off story based on one of the characters. The opportunities are endless, and using this resource provides a way to engage with all students in your class. This slide highlights other ways that wordless picture books can be used. So students can work in small groups with a partner or individually, which promotes conversation and allows time for an MLL to work with the teacher or a partner. You could also use these books for grammar practice. You could model how to write the story in present tense, and then give the students time to create their own present tense story. Then you could model a past tense story and have students do the same. They could also be used for vocabulary practice. Choose one page, label everything you see on the page, and then you can use different colors for different parts of speech. Model how to use the words to create sentences, and students could then do the same thing for other pages in the book. This graphic about wordless picture books is taken from Valentina Gonzalez. She is an educational consultant and content creator who works with educators across the United States to support multilingual language learners and their families. The graphic sums up nicely the benefits of using wordless picture books. Valentina is a great educator to follow on Twitter, X, and also try following her monthly blogs on her website. So as you can see, it sums up that wordless picture books are accessible in any language. They're more easily processed. They allow for oral and written storytelling. They allow for freedom of interpretation. And they support listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking. Here are a list of several wordless picture books that are recommended by Valentina Gonzalez from one of her articles, Wordless Picture Books Are Far From Wordless. You can find this article and this list on her website, and I did include the website link on the previous slide. We will now look at reusing resources for different purposes for MLLs. The following slides will focus on games and activities from the kindergarten classrooms and resource rooms. We will also look at the benefit of making word walls, an old standby, interactive and multilingual. Kindergarten classrooms usually have lots of simple alphabet games and books, as well as toys, toy clothing, food, and animals, which can aid in vocabulary development and makes learning more engaging and fun. As MLLs are learning letters and sounds, memory games and bingo games are one way to reinforce concepts. I found these games on a shelf in the kindergarten classroom at a school where I work. The teacher was happy to share. Although you may not be able to find these specific games, there's probably something very similar on a classroom shelf near you. As mentioned, you may not be able to find all of these resources at your school, but most likely there are other types of games and flashcards that reinforce early language skills. MLLs need specific instruction around letters and sounds, as well as vocabulary related to prepositions and positional words. Anything tactile and game-like is much more engaging for students. These games are fun and interactive and help to solidify early language concepts. So as you can see, I found a game about positional words, and it's a game about placing the frog or placing the rubber ducky under the bridge or beside the bridge or on top of the bridge. There's also a twist and turn word game to create CVC words. And then there's also a game that has chunks. So it has word endings and then chunks of a blend that you would put with the word ending to create new words, which I have seen firsthand that students loved. Word walls have been around for many years, and most teachers are familiar with them. Using word walls, both multilingual and interactive, is helpful because it provides students with visual cues of the vocabulary they are studying. So this slide reinforces the concept that all teachers are language teachers. So a focus on new vocabulary in a visual way is important for everyone, not only the students that are learning English as an additional language. Using a multilingual word wall is an example of translanguaging. The definition of translanguaging is the ability to move fluidly between languages, and it's also a pedagogical approach to teaching in which teachers support this ability. In translanguaging, students are able to think in multiple languages simultaneously and use their home language as a vehicle to learn academic English. Translanguaging provides equity for MLLs and can assist them to learn academic vocabulary in your class. The photograph on this page is of a math word wall, and as you can see, it states different math vocabulary in different languages. So place value, hundredth, subtract, and then it has what those words are in Spanish, French, German, and English. Another example of a very helpful word wall for MLLs is an interactive word wall, which includes visuals, graphics, or realia, which are real objects with each word. Students are able to connect words with their meanings very quickly. For language learners, the benefits are obvious. If the interactive word wall is about energy and one of the words on it is light bulb, a visual is the quickest way to demonstrate the meaning. Instantly, a language learner identifies what that word means and sees the word daily inside the classroom environment. These walls can be changed up frequently to align with the outcomes being taught. Hopefully, you have found something that can be useful with your MLLs today. In summary, we explored 4 different resources and strategies that can be repurposed and tweaked to better serve your students. The first was using leveled text. Leveled text is useful because of its repetition and strong text-to-picture correlation. Wordless picture books have many implications because they are accessible in any language, and there is also the opportunity to use the same text whole class and in small groups depending on the student's language level. They can be used for grammar practice, to practice sequencing, and for vocabulary development, among many other things. Also, seek out games and activities from the resource or kindergarten classrooms. Using tactile, hands-on games are ways for MLLs to explore words and how they fit together. Finally, multilingual word walls is an example of translanguaging, which values students' home language and its benefits in helping students learn another language, which is vitally important and useful. And interactive visual word walls provide a necessary picture support. Having this posted in the room is a constant visual reminder of new and difficult content-specific vocabulary. On this note, we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please reach out if you have any questions or would like any support with your EAL needs. Best of luck.